Almost 29 years since it last graced our TV screens with a new episode, Quantum Leap is back, both on live televised television and streaming on Peacock. So, what do I think of this episode? Do I think it is a worthy successor to the Quantum Leap that came before, or is it another rebooted misfire that fails to capture the original spirit of that project? I'm looking at you, Knight Rider reboot from about 10 years ago. If you're not into spoilers, I will be discussing what happens in this episode, so if you don't want those, you may want to duck out, but let's break into this. The new series does not have Scott Bakula or obviously Dean Stockwell, as he passed away in 2021. However, they are scattered throughout this episode all over the place. The opening narration discusses Dr. Sam Beckett creating the Quantum Leap Accelerator back in the 90s, getting lost in time, the fact that he's unable to return home. They even show stock footage of him. The same happens with Dean Stockwell's Al character. They are very much still a part of this show, and as such, this is a continuation of that same universe. At least a similar universe, because I have thoughts on what's really going on, and I think this may have something to do with the universe being altered by Sam's leaps, but I'll get back to that later. Our new main character is Dr. Ben Song. He is, I guess, the replacement character for Dr. Samuel Beckett in the original series. He starts off the episode at his own engagement party with his soon-to-be wife, who also works on the project. We also get to meet the rest of the team at his engagement party, and they're hit or miss for me. We've got Ernie Hudson, who's the new head, and apparently, I don't think this was discussed in the episode, but when I looked up his name afterwards, he is playing a character that Sam leapt into way back in the Vietnam War for the Leap Home episode back, whenever that aired, 93, 92, something like that. Obviously, that character was not played by Ernie Hudson at the time, but it's very interesting that they're connecting that back to somebody that Sam was inside. Not sure that sounded the way it should have, but it is the case. He's kind of there. He hasn't had much to do yet. A lot of the characters haven't had much to do yet, and that's to be expected. One thing that I will say about this first episode, it didn't really feel like a pilot in the same sense as it's a proof of concept and they'll adjust things as they go. It felt like a very rushed first episode where they're just getting the ball rolling and rushing into everything. A lot of the exposition was just plot dump. There was a lot of characters talking to each other about things they already know just to explain the premise of the show. And that's not something I normally like. But at the same time, it is nice to kind of move past those basics and get into the gist of everything. So that was a plus and a minus for me. They just kind of steamrolled their way into the premise of the show. I don't know if I would have liked to see a whole episode set in modern day before the leap begins, because the leap happens about 5 minutes in. So at the party, Ben gets a text from some mysterious woman saying, we're going to miss our window. If we don't do this now, we're never going to be able to do it. He takes off, leaving everyone behind, doesn't tell them where he's going, and he heads to the project, gets in the quantum accelerator or whatever they're calling it now, and leaps back into time. And we see that he wakes up in the body of someone, July 13th, 1985. Same similar situation to what happened in the original, has no memory. Apparently he does remember his name and obvious things like how to talk, how to breathe, how to walk, how to function, but he has no real memory of the time from whence he came. Doesn't have any memory of being a scientist or anything to do with the Quantum Leap project. He doesn't even know his fiance, who turns up very, very soon in her hologram form, to tell him what's going on. And that's more plot dump, but obviously that's to be expected. He has no memory and needs things explained to him. He's in this sort of bank robbery heist situation. He's the wheelman. He's just thrust right into the action and doesn't really have much time to get his bearings. And the hologram kind of fades out and fails for a minute, so he has to take matters into his own hands. So the storyline of being back in time wasn't necessarily the greatest thing ever. So we basically find out throughout this episode that he is playing a character who is helping this other character try to get his life back on track because his wife needs dialysis or something along those lines. They can't afford it. The bank won't loan them any more money. So they're engaged in a robbery. The main plan isn't a normal robbery, though. They robbed some C4. What they're going to do with that is create some sort of diversion at a museum to steal the Hope Diamond. I don't know. I know a lot of Quantum Leap stories in the past were very small scale stuff, but they did do some big stuff here and there. I think they could have started with a much more small scale story, and it felt like a small scale story, I don't know. It just felt like there was too much going on as far as not being a down to earth story. The storyline itself, very down to earth, trying to help this guy get his family back on track, save his wife, save the business, keep his family together, get the money they need without him getting killed in a bank robbery gone bad. But the fact that they bring the Hope Diamond into it, it's kind of taking it up 10 or 12 notches too high, in my opinion. I don't think they needed to start things off with such a high scale theft. I mean, just a simple bank robbery gone bad probably would have been more, I don't know, it would have felt more homey. It would have felt more right instead of throwing them right into the deep end of a huge robbery. I mean, that's got to be one of the most priceless gems in the world. So it seemed a little over the top that they were trying to go for that instead of maybe string together a couple, 3 normal bank robberies that go bad. Maybe they were just trying to catch our attention with a big splashy event on the first episode, but I hope they're not going to go forward with only historically relevant things instead of the simple day-to-day life that we saw in a lot of the Quantum Leap episodes. And I'm not saying all of them, because obviously there was Lee Harvey Oswald, there was a big Elvis episode, even though I think that was just a little twist at the end. But there were big things in the original, so I'm not going to knock them too many points for that. I just hope that as we go along, we're not going to get only historically significant events. That would be a shame, in my opinion. So like I said, Dr. Ben Song, kind of like him so far. I don't know if I like him as much as Sam, but that's to be expected. Ernie Hudson, again, hasn't had much to do. I like him. The main character, the fiance turned hologram program, Addison Augustine, she's a fine actress, but she does not bring anything remotely similar to the Al dynamic to this. And the fact that they are, in essence, going to be estranged lovers, I would assume, because he doesn't remember her, I feel like that's a dynamic that's going to get old and is going to be grating. And I really hope that something happens where these relationships, the interactions between them feel better. Because one of the greatest strengths of the original Quantum Leap was the Al and Sam dynamic with each other. And it doesn't seem like we're going to have that Al type relationship or dynamic, at least at the moment, because we don't have a character that's similar to him. I don't know, I'm going to really miss that snarky kind of Alness, and she really can't bring that. Now, I did enjoy the twist where it turns out at the end that she was supposed to eventually be the Leaper. He was only ever supposed to be the scientist and her hologram. I do like that twist. I still feel like the interaction between the two is not going to be nearly as fun as it could be with someone like Al. Then we've got a couple side characters who really didn't get too much to do. We've got Narissa Lee playing Jen. She's the head of security. I liked her. I'm hoping she gets a lot more to do because she seems competent with her acting and she seems like she could be a good character. Hasn't had much to do. And then we have Ian. He's the artificial intelligence architect. So far, he seems a bit cliche as far as the one they're going to throw all of the quirky characteristics on. And I hope this character gets a chance to grow and become something other than just the joke, the comic relief character. So we'll have to see where that goes. And then they introduced the mysterious woman at the beginning, who I knew right off the bat was going to be, spoilers incoming, Al's daughter, and they reveal that by the end of the episode. I'm very thankful they didn't draw this reveal out over the entire freaking season as I really thought they were going to do. I thought I was going to be making a theory video about who this woman was, and I thought it would be having a few weeks to, gather evidence and try to let you guys know I thought this was going to be the case. Thankfully, they throw that out the door and say, oh, you know what? This is Al's daughter. She was not allowed to join the Quantum Leap program when they brought it back into service. They thought there would be a conflict of interest because of her relationship with both Al and Sam in her past. Ernie Hudson is directly answering to the government. Now, I know they had some government oversight in the original Quantum Leap, but it really wasn't addressed all that much. So I'm wondering how often they're actually going to have to deal with the government and bureaucracy and things like that. Kind of reminds me a bit of what happened in the show Timeless a few years ago, which, by the way, was canceled long before it should have been. And then we have Ziggy. Ziggy is still the AI in charge of everything. Not working very well throughout the episode, but they managed to get her back online towards the end. I don't think she actually ever spoke in the episode. I could be wrong. So those are our main players. So far, I'm not feeling the magic between the interactions of them. As I said, I do like Dr. Ben Song currently as the main character, and that's a big, big plus. What I am not enjoying so far is the interaction between him and his fiance in the field. It just doesn't have that same magic. By and large, I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was going to be awful, and I was very surprised. And actually, I think it might be worthwhile following along. I'm guessing, and I don't know this for sure because Scott Bakula has had some things saying that he's not involved in this whatsoever, but my guess is something happened in the past, whether or not Sam Beckett is the one running things behind the scene, but I'm thinking all of our characters are somehow related to people that Sam either helped or leapt into in the past, and that the whole crux of this is Sam somehow behind the scenes trying to fix everything, trying to set right what once went wrong as far as this team. He's putting all the pieces in play, and we're going to end the first season with finally having Sam be rescued, finally having Sam come back into time. Maybe what happened is he changed something in the past that prevented the Quantum Leap program from doing what it was supposed to. So he has, through manipulating history, reassembled a team that can correctly run the Quantum Leap program. I don't know, I'll probably have to do more thinking on this, but I think Sam Beckett is behind everything, and by the end of season 1, he will be making a reappearance, and season 2, assuming the show does well and goes into a season 2 and doesn't get canceled in 3 weeks, we will be seeing Sam Beckett return, if not in a full-time capacity, maybe as an advisor, or maybe Ben will still be leaping, but Sam will be his hologram. And I think that could be a very, very cool way to end the first season. But they are taking quite a risk to even get to the end of season 1 without having any legacy characters in a main capacity. Those are my thoughts. I definitely think it's worth checking out if you're on the fence. Don't know where it's going to go. It could go downhill, but there is a spark of hope, and that is a lot more than I could say for most television shows these days. So until next time, keep on leaping.